Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our April 28th action meeting. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Sugars for roll call.
Mrs. Arroyo?
Here.
Ms. Friedel?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Neary?
Here.
Mr. Avadia?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz?
Here.
Mrs. Tong?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel?
Here. Okay, our first item of business is approval of minutes. We are going to make a motion to approve minutes from the special action and executive session for March 10th, 2020. Approval of minutes for the regular meeting minutes and executive session dated March 24th, 2020, and approval of minutes, the regular meeting minutes dated March 31st, 2020. Lori, can I have a second?
Yes.
Any questions or changes? Okay, seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm going to open up the voting in just 1 second. My computer is a little sluggish tonight. All right, I'm going to open up the online voting for board members.
Oh, I make a mistake.
That's all right, you can change it.
Oh, okay. But I don't see the Q there.
All right, I'll change it for you. Did you want that to be a yes, Mrs. Tong?
Yes. Yes, please, Mrs. Sugar.
Okay, we have a unanimous vote.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
And just let me, he's got it on the screen.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and post that.
Okay. We do not have any board recognition or presentations tonight. Does anybody have any correspondence to share? I'll just go around really quick to see if anybody has anything. Lori?
So Lisa, is this where we would discuss the security committee and the alternate funding committee, or are we going to do that under another section?
No, we've typically done it under correspondence.
Yes.
Okay, then I guess I can give, I'll do a brief update since alternate funding met last week virtually. It was to go over the report that Mrs. Sugars had finalized. It was the output from our previous meeting. The group went over it, reviewed it, and then there was some positive feedback from several of the community members. And then there was discussion around, you know, timing of socializing and things we wanted to communicate to the community. So there was quite a bit of discussion back and forth around that, and obviously timing with COVID when we would like to go out and have those discussions for our next steps was the big focus.
Great, thank you. Carol, any correspondence?
Would you like me to talk about the safety and security committee
Yes,
meetings
please.
we had, or had
Sure.
you planned to do that?
No, that's fine, Carol. You can
Okay.
do it.
We also met virtually with the committee, and I believe it was just about everybody who was on. All the committee members were there. We also spoke about the recommendations that the committee has come up with to be presented to the board. Mrs. Sugars put it together in a very organized way for the board, for the committee members to look over. There was some discussion about it, but that what she had captured, everybody felt was pretty much what had been discussed and what were the major concerns. There was a little bit of discussion about going forward in this environment with the virus. that changes a little bit of a focus for safety and security. So this will be, ongoing as well as what the initial focus was going forward. So that report will come to the board at our May meeting.
Great, thank you. Eric, Mr. Goodwin, any correspondence?
I have none.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Schultz?
I have none. Ms. Neary already covered the alternative funding meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Avadia?
None for me, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Tong?
None for me.
Okay, Ms. Friedel?
Not tonight, thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Arroyo?
No, thank you.
Okay, next we will move into our first public comment as in our past.
I have student.
Oh, student, we have student reports, great.
Yes.
Okay,
So Mrs. Wilson was in contact with the student reps from East and from West. So they have provided reports for tonight. And I will start Mrs. Sugar's, I'm going to read them. I probably won't do the same justice that the kids would do, but I am going to read them. And I'll start with the students from High School East. This comes to us from Jacob and Kartik. Students continue to complete online work. For the most part, students receive 2 assignments per week by 8 a.m. on Monday, 1 due on Wednesday at midnight, and 1 due Friday at midnight. For most non-AP classes, there is a 2-hour limit. However, AP classes can go over to include AP test prep. Mr. East is continuing preparations to do an online show with all the contestants, with a meeting being recently with the chairpeople, the advisor, Mrs. Radbill, and the contestants who are still committed to performing the acts that they can from home. Teachers have been assigned office hours and are scheduling Zoom calls with students who do not understand the material during these times, so students are given adequate personal time like they can receive in school if the class instruction is not satisfactory. There is now a ranged grading system in order where if a grade falls between 2 previously set numbers, it is given, in quotes, X grade, and a lower range delivers, in quotes, Y grade, etc. Students feel this is helping them mitigate the stresses of online learning while still incentivizing them to put in good work. Students will receive feedback on all work and have opportunities to resubmit work for a desirable grade if previously deemed needing revision. Many teachers are still being flexible with deadlines in order to help students deliver their best performance, not just a satisfactory one, so they can ensure learning is being achieved. Guidance has made clear efforts to reach out to students if they need assistance with anything. Mr. Gamble has provided resources and information to students upon request for getting monetary refunds for canceled AP tests. AP tests have been moved back approximately 2 weeks, so students now have more time to study and can use the videos put out by the College Board and the Princeton Review on certain subjects as supplementary study tools. The Activities Office, Ms. Barr, has been posting inspirational and pick-me-up videos from teachers and their kids at their home to help us all stay motivated. They have also been highlighting the Wall of Fame honored students who have not got a chance to see their names on the cork boards in school. Students can also submit year in review videos they put together and social distancing prom photos that students arranged in the cancellation of junior prom, and Cherry Hill East activities will post them as well. Students have organized Instagram pages to commemorate students' college decisions, and East Side has arranged the same idea on Facebook. Mr. Barrow has been gathering East students' athletic commitments via the athletics pages on Instagram and Twitter. Virtual cum laude inductions will be happening at an as of yet undecided date. Hope you and all your families are staying safe in quarantine. Robotics J Team did an online virtual simulation of the World's Tournament and came out in first place overall in the entire tournament. East Side has shifted its coverage onto COVID-19 and its impact on East students' Cherry Hill community. And that's from Jacob and Kartik. And then from High School West, Cherry Hill West Board Report from Maria Musa, the Cherry Hill West student representative. Unfortunately, all spring sports have been canceled, but coaches have been sending workouts for the athletes to do at home. The girls lacrosse team has even done some TikTok challenges. Students are working on their online work, and the staff have been very understanding and have not hesitated to help students. A new schedule has also been put into place for students to call into class and assignments to be turned in. AP teachers are currently assigning review assignments to prepare for the at-home exams in the near future. Virtua and Penn interns got the opportunity to meet through Google Meet with a researcher from Integral Molecular who is working on finding antibodies to fight COVID-19. They also got to meet with the Jeff Stat team and learn about what they are doing at this time. The Principals Committee met with Dr. Malash and Dr. Morton last week and discussed what was happening in the districts and way we could adjust senior year activities that normally take place. The senior class is very thankful for the effort that is being put in to help make our senior year the best that it can be. The Principals Committee and the Executive Committee of the National Honor Society also continue to meet with their advisors through Google Meet. A message from the West community. We hope that the board and their families are all in good health, and we would like to say thank you for all the hard work that you are putting in during this tough time.
Thank you, Jacob, Kartik, and Maria. It was great. Okay, now we will move into our first public comment. There will be 2 opportunities for comment this evening, and the first public comment session is for agenda items only. Mrs. Sugars will read the comments that she received in advance. There's still time to send a comment through the end of the comment period. You can email your comment to lshugars@chclc.org. Mrs. Sugars?
I currently have no agenda items.
No agenda item. Okay. All right. Well, next I'll turn it over to Dr. Malash for superintendent's comments.
Thank you, Mrs. Saida. I'm a little out of breath after the kids' comments. They did such a nice job. This is our last board meeting in April. All the time we talk about how fast the spring travels and what it's like as we prepare for the end of the year. This is certainly a unique year as we prepare for the end and for the celebrations for our children throughout the different grade levels. First, I want to start by thanking all of our staff for the incredible job that they continue to do in this new environment. I've had the opportunity to spend some time with some of the staff members in their classes online with their students. I had a virtual meeting with the staff, nearly 50 people from Kilmer Elementary School yesterday afternoon. And it is fascinating for me to hear directly from the staff about what this experience has been like for them. And again, they continue to rise to the challenges that have been placed in front of them. Secondly, I would like to thank the families at home for the support that they have been providing. I've told lots of people as I've talked to them, well, my 4 girls are at home and they are all taking classes. They're 18, 20, 21, and 22. So they're responsible to get themselves up in the morning, they feed themselves, they do their own work, and they put themselves to bed. I can't imagine the challenge of having smaller children at home in preschool, in elementary school, or a combination of not even in preschool and in elementary school and middle school. So a huge thank you to the families for all that you do to continue to support the students and to work interactively with the teachers so that we can make sure that all of our children continue to be supported as we provide the information and go through the remainder of the year. And finally, and most importantly, to the students. These 11,000 children whom we are entrusted with on a daily basis, I'm thankful for what they continue to do. They are articulate and they are honest. They provide an incredibly valuable feedback from all the way down to lower elementary, the kindergarten students that I've seen, up through the high school students. They've given authentic feedback about what is working for them, and they've talked about and focused on learning. It is such an invigorating time to be able to talk about education because so much of the focus has truly been on learning. It's about different pedagogical techniques, different ways to address information, different ways to present things to the children. And the kids respond about what they are learning. It's what we continue to hear from parents and what we continue to strive for on a daily basis. Again, the evolution of our continuity of learning plan continues. We've continued to send information out to the community. So please, if you have questions, always make sure you start with your child's classroom teacher, go to the principal. You can always question with me. I will always refer back to the building to make sure that we know what's going on at that level. But incredibly thankful to those groups. And remember, thank a teacher. Thank them for what they're doing. Thank the librarians. Thank the school nurses. Thank the counselors and the principals for the outreach they continue to do. Some very important announcements. Earlier this evening, you all received a phone call at home and you will receive emails at home as well. We received notice late Friday night from the New Jersey Department of Agriculture that the state of New Jersey has received a waiver for the meal program. So starting tomorrow, Wednesday, April the 29th, we are able to serve meals to any child who's enrolled in the district. So from 10 to 12, 10 to noon tomorrow at High School East, High School West, and Barton Elementary School, any child who's enrolled in the district can go and pick up 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches. I'm incredibly thankful to Mrs. Sugars and to the folks at Aramark for the work that they've done to be able to put this together in such a quick turnaround. Again, phone calls and emails have gone out. We will continue to push the information out through our social media platforms. Any child who's enrolled in the district, you can go and pick up meals for them. We will continue the meal pickup on Monday, May 4th, and then on Wednesday, May 6th. Next week, we do a Monday and Wednesday cycle, 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches on Monday, 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches on Wednesdays. Again, if you have questions about that process, please do not hesitate to contact us. It's very straightforward. You pull onto the property, you stay in your car, you give the information about the children you're picking up for. The Aramark folks, they set the meals out on a table, you get out of your car, you pick them up, put you in your car, and drive them away. Smiling faces, our campus police officers are there, welcoming families every single time that we do it. So again, if you have questions about that, please let us know. We do continue to work on what celebration looks like for our children, what it looks like for graduation for our seniors, and we are committed to this class of 2020 that we will celebrate them and honor them at the end of the year. And we are talking about in-person ceremonies and virtual ceremonies. Again, we are still at the mercy of the governor and the directives that we receive from the state. We will celebrate these children. In fact, in the discussion that we had yesterday morning, I had an opportunity to speak with the high school principals and the activities advisors. We're planning for both right now, because in some way, I'm going to assume that as of today, both will occur, that we will have that virtual ceremony and that everybody will be able to see, we'll be able to celebrate, and we'll be able to confer the diplomas. And if we can do it, we will also do it in person. And we're talking about what that looks like. We're talking about 5th grade moving up ceremonies, clap-ins, clap-outs, all the rest of those activities that go on. And again, the administrators and the staff in the buildings, the advisors, continue to try and come up with new and inventive ways to be able to celebrate and to share this information with children and with families. Thank you for all that you continue to do to support the school district. Remember, continue to be compassionately spaced. Stay home, stay separated. If we can continue to do what's being asked of us, we will be able to get back together. And again, I'm not going to say that we're going to return to normal, because there is no returning to where we were when we arrived for school on March 13th. We've grown, we've evolved, and we're going to do better by kids because we're able to do better by kids. So thank you. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Malash.
Mrs. Seidel, I
Yes.
did receive a public comment.
Okay.
It is pertaining to the budget.
Okay.
So
Great.
I'm going to go ahead and read that. For budget adoption, has any guidance been given on how to plan for any adjustment in the original state aid numbers given the dramatic drop in state revenue? And that's from Yanni Yaris.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we will move into our action agenda. We'll start with curriculum and instruction. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of middle school and high school summer reading list for 2019-2020 school year. And number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements 2019-2020 school year. Mrs. Matlack, do I have a second?
I second that.
Great, thank you. And now I'll go around to see if anybody has any questions, and I'll start with Lori, Mrs. Neary.
No questions, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Goodwin,
No questions for me.
Ms. Schultz,
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Tong,
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Avadia,
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Friedel,
No questions, thank you.
and Mrs. Arroyo.
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, seeing none, no questions, Ms. Sugars.
So I just opened the online voting. So you can go ahead and put your votes in. And it appears that we have a unanimous vote. I will check for any abstentions or changes. Mrs. Arroyo,
No, thank you.
Ms. Friedel,
Sorry, no.
Mr. Goodwin,
No changes.
Mrs. Matlack,
I have no changes or abstentions.
Mrs. Neary,
No, none for me.
Mr. Avadia,
None for me.
Mrs. Schultz,
None for me, thank you.
Mrs. Tong, Mrs. Tong, any abstentions? Okay. Mrs. Seidel.
No, thank you. Okay, next we'll move into business and facilities. Again, the superintendent recommends and I move the following. Number 1, financial reports. Number 2, adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. Number 3, maximum travel expenditure. Number 4, motion to approve use of capital reserve to fund approved projects for the 2020-2021 school year. And Mrs. Schultz, do I have a second?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And now I'll go around to see if anybody has any questions or discussion. Mrs. Tong?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about hold on, let me look into it. The budget for the 2020-21 budget. In that budget, what does it include? What are we doing with that budget? The fund, the general fund. What do we do with the money that's budgeted to put away? The $216,000.
I'm not sure that we quite understand your question.
Okay, the general fund that was budgeted for $216,574. What was that budget fund for?
It's the whole, it's
It's
actually a million. So if you're looking at 15.2, the general fund monies, those are the monies that we use to operate the school districts. We pay salaries and benefits, we order supplies and materials. Basically, that $260 million, everything that goes on from July 1st until June 30th, whether it's fixing a roof or ordering a textbook or anything else, comes out of that $216 million.
So basically, you're talking about salaries. We typically, if you look at the budget that was sent home, we divide it down into different categories. We have regular education, we have special education, we have bilingual and basic skills and extracurricular and athletics, and that makes up our education costs. And then on the other side, we have our other costs, which are not educational, but more support type costs, operational type costs, and that includes everything from student services to maintenance, to transportation, to administration, custodial, security, employee benefits. And then we also have capital outlay, and that's where we will do some projects. We are going to hold off on some projects for now, waiting until we see what happens with the revised budget. But that's what makes up, I like to call it the meat and potatoes of our budget. It basically covers the day-to-day operations of the school district.
Okay. Does that budget also include the maintenance of the sidewalks or pavement of the roads or things like that?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Let you know about the, I guess the school that was in the, I believe it was Calusi and Kingston that was mentioned in the email. Are we going to do anything with that? That be mentioned by the, I guess, communities.
You referring to some, we had received an email with some concerns about some paving and some sidewalk?
Yes. Yes. Calusi, I think, in another elementary school, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, you know, as we do maintenance and we look around our buildings, we always try to make sure that we're addressing hazardous conditions. We have unfortunately, a lot of pavement and concrete throughout the district that is not in great shape. You know, a lot of that was slated to be addressed through the bond referendum. But if, you know, we are aware of issues, and if there's anything that's of an immediate concern, I have already forwarded some emails to our facilities director. He is aware of the issues. I'm not sure that the estimates that were given out are enough to cover the work that needs to be done, but we definitely have people looking into that and making sure that, you know, anything that's hazardous, we try to address as soon as we can.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, please make that like a policy, I guess, because we don't want anybody hurt in the school ground. Thank you, Mrs. Sugar.
You're welcome.
Mr. Avadia.
No, well, now that you mention it, so I see spec security vestibule. Just a quick question for Ms. Sugars. How many vestibules then have we sort of allocated funding for already? Where does this put us?
So that will put us at 6 vestibules. We have Barclay, Payne, Woodcrest, East and West, which we're just putting the finishing touches on. And so this will be our first middle school that we'll be doing.
Okay, so about a third, let's say a third of the thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avadia. Ms. Friedel?
Yes, I just have a question. In light of COVID-19, I know that in a lot of communities, school districts have been providing supplies and things to hospitals. I know I saw the post where we are loaning some equipment to the police department. So I'm not sure if we have donated other supplies to help our essential employees as good community members. But if we did, are we budgeting enough money to replenish all of the supplies we may need to get in addition to like the normal allocation?
So I will start and then have Mr. Sugars jump in. We made a sizable donation of equipment to Cooper Cancer Center back in March, where we donated cases of gloves, masks, face shields, that kind of stuff. The question and about budgeting, so one of the challenging pieces is what equipment are we going to need, right? So that's a discussion we had earlier today about masks. You know, if we're going to return to school and everybody's going to need to wear a mask and we're going to have to supply masks, 11,000 children and 1,700 employees, you know, do we need to plan for 2 masks a day per child and per staff member or more? Do we need to have them available for visitors? And if we have to do it by day, you know, what does that start to look like? So we have some initial orders of masks that we've received in the district, you know, that Mrs. Sugars taken care of back earlier in March that have come through. And I'll let her talk a little bit more about, you know, what we're looking at for at least the near future.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to come down to what type of supplies are necessary. We've been looking at everything from thermometers. We had purchased a lot of cleaning supplies prior, just as this was starting to unfold. We fortunately had a lot of gloves already in stock. And so, you know, our budget, you know, is going to have to be flexible as it always does. I mean, typically when we're putting our budget together in November and December, we never know what it's going to look like the following September. It's just the nature of what our timeline is. But, you know, we will make do, we will make amends where we need to make sure that whatever the requirements are, we are meeting those requirements and making sure that we have on hand what we need.
Okay, thank you. And I'm really happy to hear that we were partnering with Cooper to be good citizens. One other question, have you heard anything further about the Alyssa's Law and the reimbursement for the security items?
So we had heard that that's going to start to open up in May. And right now it's being done through our grant system, the state's grant system. And the first thing we need to do is we need to show compliance. So we are working on that right now. We have almost all of the devices installed. We are waiting for East and West, and that's only because they're in the process of finalizing their vestibules. And then once we get those installed, we will have working with Mr. Saporito and the Cherry Hill Police Department has to certify those. So we will get that certification from the police department. That's the first hurdle that we have to get over, and then we are open to be able to apply for the grant funds. We have not heard just yet what that piece is going to look like, but we do know that we need to get past this hurdle of making sure that we have everything in place, and that's what we're focusing on right now. We're hoping that some more guidance comes down and that we can, we have the projects lined up. We know what we want to do. We're going to use those funds to continue the cameras and the swipe card access throughout the district, which is pretty cut and dried. It's, equipment and installation. So it should be a fairly simple grant application process. So we're just waiting for more direction on that. And as soon as we get that, we'll make sure that we get those applications in.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Arroyo.
No, thank you.
Ms. Schultz.
None, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Number one, I appreciate the fact that it seems like you're definitely doing some planning ahead in terms of potential supplies as far as masks and all that. And I also noticed in the budget you did identify having a floating nurse position. Are we also potentially planning for additional maybe contract nurses or whatever? Because if we have to be taking temperatures and those kind of things, are we looking to have like contingent nursing staff, or I'm not sure even what that would look like, but setting aside funds to look at that. And the other question I have is along the lines of, I know there's going to be a revised budget at some point in time. Do we already have a contingency plan for what happens if any of the funds, if we don't get all the funds that we're expected to get?
So thank you, Mr. Goodwin. We have talked about nurses, and again, what that will look like, depending upon what the requirements are, from the state and what our needs are, to best serve the community and the children and the staff here. There is nothing firm that we believe we need to hire a certain number of nurses to get in. Part of our reason for adding the additional nursing position to the budget is because we struggle so much even to get substitute nurses. We can always use an additional nurse that's here to provide additional support throughout the district. So if we had to contract with others, that's something on the outside. It's something that we certainly will look at. It's a really good question. That's come up, I know, at the state level, because again, if that requirement goes out that all the public schools in the district are going to have to do something different in that manner with nurses, there's not enough nurses. You know what I mean? Like that just doesn't exist at the moment as we go through. In terms of identifying things in the budget, what it looks like with the state aid, the direction, the directive that we have received from the Department of Ed is to build our budgets, based on the numbers that were provided to us in February. The Board of Ed did the preliminary adoption of the budget in March. We submitted that to the Executive County Superintendent. The Executive County Superintendent and Business Administrator reviewed it and approved the budget and returned it to us approved. The board we're asking to adopt tonight. And then like every year, we wait and see what the dollar amounts actually are that the state then provides to us. If there is a change, then we will adjust what we are spending money on accordingly in the budget. You know, and we reorganized, you know, some of the work to be done in terms of how we are spending money from capital reserve as opposed to the budget, so that there is more flexibility within the budget should our funding decrease from the state. We do think it's important, you know, that folks and you know, talked with Zone PTA folks. We met with them a couple of weeks ago. Talked with, you know, the fair funding folks. You know, always continue to voice about how important it is, you know, to continue to fund public education. In this case, especially in Cherry Hill, we are going to be asking staff, I am sure, to do things differently. You know, when we are back in school, regardless of when that is, you know, there's going to be an effect. You know, so it's important that we continue to be funded. But yes, Eric, we've built contingencies in to the budget that we will identify, you know, and prioritize about what must be done, what we would like to be done, you know, that kind of thing. Mrs. Sugars, if.
Yeah, I mean, essentially at this point, we're going to hold back on some of the projects that we had intended to do. And this is one from a financial standpoint, but also, you know, some of the things that we intended to do is just not going to be possible to do because we're not going to be able to get the materials that we need to do them. So, you know, right now we're going to kind of just sit tight and take a wait and see attitude on some of those projects that we had planned for the summer.
Okay, Mrs. Matlack.
Well, just one quick follow-up, and
Sure.
I don't know if this is even possible, but is there a way we could possibly get ourselves like to position like front of the line if we do need additional nursing staff? I mean, I don't know if that's a possible way, or I'm not sure where you would get nurses. I mean, where you would normally contract the additional nurses or
right. So we contract with a number of different nursing services, typically on the for students who have one-to-one nurses, both here in district and some children that are out of district placements. We have a good relationship. I know that we are in the process of increasing the substitute nurse pay. I think, Ms. Adrian, did we have increased, or we're planning, the increase has already gone through for next year?
We're not planning on increasing their rate.
The sub nurses?
Not increased. No, their rate was not increased.
And then same thing with the contracted service on the outside between your office and Mrs. Wethington's office. You know, Mr. Goodwin, we'll do what we can, certainly with the people with whom we work. We'll do what we can. Yes, yeah, I mean, we will be in the front of the line waving for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Mrs. Matlack, any comments?
I have no additional comments. The concerns I had have already been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mrs. Neary?
I guess it's just a minor procedural question. If the state changes the funding based on the situation and you have to adjust the budget, would you generate a revised budget in its entirety, or will you just make the changes based on the areas where the funds will shift?
I'm sorry, could you say that last part again, Mrs. Neary?
Do we have to resubmit the budget in its entirety?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, we don't know at this point. I don't know. We may.
Mrs. Neary, the closest thing that we have in recent years is when, you know, the number of years that we've received additional funding after the state budget was constructed late in June. And typically when we receive those dollars, the $1 million, you know, in excess of $1 million, all we needed to do at that time was to identify in which line those monies were going to go and on what we were going to spend them. If money is cut, I'm going to assume that there will be a similar process that we go through. I don't believe, my estimation, just in terms of volume for the county superintendent, is I don't believe that we will have to resubmit the entire budget, but just those areas in which we've made fiscal adjustments. And Ms. Sugars or Mrs. Ridgway, I don't know if there's anything else you ladies want to.
Yeah, I really don't know what to expect at this point. You know, a couple of years, well, it was 2010, I guess, when we lost state aid due to the state budget crisis. And basically, they just didn't give us the rest of our state aid. And so we were left with just sort of figuring it out. Right. I don't know if they will take that approach this time or if they will actually require something more formal.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions. I had similar to Mr. Goodwin, what contingency plan looks like, and then a follow-up about what the process is if that happens. So they already discussed, but I did just want to say that I'm, as Mr. Avadia pointed out, you know, we're slowly getting there with our security vestibules, which is really exciting, but I'm happy to see that pieces of our whole suite of security products that we've been talking about for a really long time could, you know, be completed very soon. We've got the district-wide swipe cards,
Yes.
cameras. So we've been talking about this stuff for a really long time. So it's nice that some of this is coming to fruition and that pieces of that, you know, suite or package that we know is a bonus for our schools is moving forward. So I'm excited about that. Thank you.
And Mrs. Seidel, you can see that the district-wide cameras, the district-wide swipe card access, and the ADA compliance items we put into the capital reserve, right? So that if our budget, that's money that we have saved, you know, that comes from outside the budgetary. What's the normal budget that we're collecting the money through the tax levy fund? That's money that we've saved. So we will be able to do those safety and security things and continue to do those ADA compliance projects that we wanted to do, you know, moving forward.
Right.
Because we don't want those to be, you know, something that's impacted should funds be cut.
Right. Great.
The board's been clear with their directives on how we, you know.
Yep.
We were proceeding.
Great. Okay. So unless there are any follow-up questions, I will turn it over to Mrs. Sugars for a vote.
All right, so I opened up the online voting and then I will check to make sure there are no abstentions.
Hi, Mrs. Sugars. I'm not connected to the internet to be able to vote right now.
Okay, so are you voting yes?
I am voting yes. I'll try to reconnect.
Okay. All right, so we have a unanimous vote. And let me just go through and check. I know sometimes with BNF we have some abstention. Let me just go through that real quick. Mrs. Arroyo?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Ms. Friedel?
No, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Matlack?
No abstentions, thank you.
Mrs. Neary?
None, thank you.
Mr. Avadia?
None, thanks.
Mrs. Schultz?
None, thank you.
Mrs. Tong?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Mrs. Seidel?
No abstentions. Thank you. Okay, next we will move into our human resources agenda. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointments certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, contract renewals certificated. Number 6, contract renewals non-certificated. Number 7, leaves of absence certificated. And number 8, leaves of absence non-certificated. Mrs. Tong, do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Arroyo, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Friedel?
No, thank you.
Mr. Avadia?
No, thanks. Just one, I'm sorry, I do have a question. So it was noted, I think, in the student report from West that, so sports are done for the year from an operation, like there's no possibility there would be any kind of a sports season, is that correct?
So Mr. Avadia, NJSIAA, which is the governing body for the state, has not yet completely eliminated sports for the year. They had left it still open-ended with the possibility of an abbreviated tournament of some sort. So that is, no, at this point, it's not completely done.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Okay, Mrs. Schultz,
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin,
No questions for me.
Mrs. Matlack,
No questions, thank you.
and Mrs. Neary.
No questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sugars, off to you.
Okay, we're going to open the online voting. And it appears the vote is unanimous. Let me just run through and check any abstentions or changes. Mrs. Arroyo,
No, thank you.
Ms. Friedel,
No, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin,
None for me.
Mrs. Matlack,
None, thank you.
Neary,
None, thank you.
Mr. Avadia,
None for me, thanks.
Mrs. Schultz,
None, thank you.
Mrs. Tom,
Nothing for me. Thank you, Mrs. Sugars.
None, thank you. Next, we'll move into policy and legislation. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying, investigation decisions. And number 2, approval of the revised 2020-2021 school calendar. Mrs. Neary, do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Schultz, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin?
No questions for me.
Mrs. Matlack?
No questions, thank you.
Mrs. Tong?
Yes, Lisa. I just want to confirm the calendar for 2020 to 2021. That is the new Chinese New Year, I think, is in there, correct? And that's official, is that correct? February the 12th, 2021?
Say your question again, Sally, please.
Sure. The calendar for 2020 to 2021.
Yes.
I just make sure the Lunar Chinese New Year is incorporated with the New Year.
Yes.
For February 12th. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mrs. Khan, so Friday, February the 12th, we have an in-service day for staff, which coincides with Lunar New Year. And on Friday, November 13th, we have an in-service day, which coincides with Diwali.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malash, for doing that.
Okay. Mr. Avadia?
No questions for me, thank you.
Ms. Friedel?
No questions for me, thank you.
And Mrs. Arroyo?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And no questions, but again, just a comment. I know I mentioned this before that I'm very happy to see that the elementary and middle school conference dates and the additional PSAT dates are on the calendar. I know as a parent that used to have little kids that needed to be taken care of while I was working, it was great to have that information in advance. So I'm sure a lot of people are appreciative that that's on there nice and early. So thank you for
Yes.
that.
Nice work by Dr. Mahan and Dr. Smith.
Yep, thank you. Okay, we don't, oh, I need to turn it over to Mrs. Sugars for a vote.
So I open up the online voting.
I forgot.
Mrs. Tong, are you having difficulty with your voting?
Oh, I didn't get that. So, yes, I do. Sorry. I will say yes to it.
Okay, so the vote is unanimous. I'm going to close the online voting. And we have any abstentions from any of the items, Mrs. Arroyo?
No, thank you.
Ms. Friedel?
None for me, thank you.
Mr. Goodwin?
None for me, thank you.
Mrs. Matlack?
None for me, thanks.
Mrs. Neary?
None, thank you.
Mr. Avadia?
None, thanks.
Mrs. Schultz?
None, thank you.
Mrs. Tong?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Seidel.
No, thank you. We do not have any items for the action agenda for strategic planning, but we could use this opportunity for an update on our strategic planning process. I know Mrs. Neary and Mrs. Malik briefly covered the updates from the two committees. I don't know if there's anything about the committees that you wanted to add before we go into anything else.
So at this time, that's really the biggest updates of what's going on. And, you know, just to echo a little bit what Mrs. Neary and Mrs. Matlack talked about, we had really good discussions last week during those meetings. In fact, the safety and security meeting that we had, the recommendations to the board significantly were different, you know, and improved from the discussion that took place last week, you know, based on what's gone on with the school closures, with the school buildings being closed because of COVID-19. And just I'm very grateful to the community members who volunteered their time. With some of them, it's the first time that they have been formally involved, you know, in something like this that's gone on. We had community members, we had students, we have staff members, we had principals. Mr. Brow participated in the alternative funding and really lays that foundation of the next step as we move forward. As I said during the last meeting, we'll reiterate again tonight, you know, our planning process in terms of referendum has run parallel with strategic planning. Now the strategic planning in the process, we've actually moved forward. We've adopted those 3 goals to take us through 2025. You know, the action planning committees are continuing to meet right now. I'm still optimistic that they will be able to report out late May, probably early June, because we have the other presentations. But they're, you know, again, staff members are doing some really, really good work. And it provides us the direction and the understanding, you know, that again, as a school district that we have desired over the course of the last few years in the discussion. And when you look back in terms of the progression of the discussion from the referendum in 2018 to the ad hoc committee and the work of the board, you know, in the winter and spring of 2019, to the meetings with Judy Wilson and the surveys, you know, in the winter of 2019 and 2020, taking us to where we are. It's an incredible body of work that's been undertaken and that we are still producing. So again, grateful for that. As we get into the summer, I will say again that, you know, we are not in a place that we're going to be able to go out for referendum in March of 2021. We will have a continued discussion of what the rest of 2021 looks like. That gives us additional time to look and to talk and help to solidify what we're doing. But I think that we're looking at different financial circumstances, different realities in terms of what's going to be available to us. And again, the value of what we provide in terms of the quality of the education, because of the staff that we have and the families that are here, will always, always, always remain as the most important thing that we have in our school district. So yeah, just grateful for what everybody has done. I'm looking forward to the discussion on May 4th when we have our next strategic planning meeting. And just a reminder for folks that our committee meetings will take place next Monday. We'll have HR, we'll have P&L, and we will have C&I and strategic planning. Those meetings will not be broadcast. You know, we do not broadcast our committee meetings. Board members, you'll receive instructions about logging in to those meetings with the Friday memo this week. And then the B&F meeting will actually be moved to next Tuesday, May the 5th, as we are doing interviews for board solicitor. So that's where we are, at least process-wise.
Okay.
I expect, Mrs. Seidel, that, you know, and you've got the document that we published early September, you know, for the different phases. We are not going to revise that as of right now, but as we get into July is probably when you will see the next revision. You know, and board members, some of you are familiar with this process. We'll be closing out our goals, our district goals during the June cycle. You know, and ideally we'll be introducing goals, you know, and the foundation for those goals at the committee of the whole meeting in July.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that update.
Absolutely.
Let me go around and see if anybody has any questions. Mrs. Neary.
None for me, thanks.
Okay. Mrs. Matlack.
No questions at this time, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Goodwin.
Just one question / comment. I had the opportunity to take a look, a brief look. One of my acquaintances actually as a teacher in China, and some of the things that they were doing there when they came back were like putting up dividers between over the desks, like clear dividers, and a lot of other precautionary things they were doing. I'm not sure that we could ever afford to do all that kind of stuff, but I'm wondering, is part of the, are there things that we're considering to adjust, given this whole COVID-19 in our long-range plan that would just help to ensure safety and security for the kids, and as we kind of come back to whatever the new normal may be?
It's a good question, Mr. Gwynn. I'm not going to have a real concrete answer for you right now, just because there is so much for us that's unknown. I can tell you the state has asked us, to look at a number of different options. Internally, we're taking a look at, everything from returning to school and running a normal operational schedule in September, to what's the impact if we decide we need to run on split sessions to only have half the number of kids in school. Is there some impact something we can do with class size? Are there materials? All of that right now, is in the discussion stage. There are real impacts for all of those things. Most of which always comes back to money, to go through. More staff cost more money, more materials, more supplies cost more money. Health, safety, and wellness will always be our priority. So we are looking at what all of those options are, and what it looks like for our school district, so that when we continue to receive additional information from the medical folks and from the state, we can make the determination about what's going to be best for our students and our staff here in Cherry Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Ms. Schultz?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Tong?
No.
Mr. Ovadia? Hi, thank you. So two sort of directional comments / questions. The first one, just things I've been thinking about as we kind of have maybe a little bit more time to reflect here. The first thing is, I'm thinking, so the timeline has been potentially put, we'll discuss that more later, but from bond to bond, we'll be talking about probably about 3 years. And I agree a lot with Dr. Malash when he says there's work that needs to be done. And I think framing that out will be very important. One of the things I think, as I look at the strategic planning document that's been sort of shared and out there, and very good as a work plan and a structure, I think we're in the think stage. And I think one of the things we need to think about is, how does this roll out? I mean, with a 3-year window, it's really important the next time we go out, we give ourselves, I think, the best chance to get significant dollars to really do some significant work on our buildings. But what I don't know that we know, or that we have gathered the expertise on, is do we do this is all the work that needs to be done and we need the community to buy in. Do we do something staged? And I will say that I was fairly convinced a while ago that if we went sort of in a staged approach with perhaps an emergent start to a bond of, I don't know, $50, $100 million, that it would give us an amazing chance to succeed. And then recently I saw what happened in Morristown, and they had a small bond that went down. What I wonder is, do we have some data gathering sources, advice that will be presented to the board with people who are experts in this kind of thing that says, look, in order to get something passed, this is how we feel you get the best chance. Maybe it's a 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's a, staged. Maybe it's, maybe it has to do more with the packaging. But that real bond advice going forward. So that was one thing. The second thing, and I'm going to agree again here, that I think the work of Judy Wilson and the district's done very well framed in terms of strategic, goals and this kind of thing. I'm wondering, will we have a formalized process? I feel like, and maybe I'm the only one who feels that way, but I feel like we're under the gun a little bit right now in delivering quality education. I think it's being done well. but we're sort of in the middle of it. Will there be time over the summer, perhaps, to reflect in terms of those three overarching goals and what our learnings as a district has been? And by that I mean, social emotional care is so much more difficult in a virtual environment, and yet it's where we find ourselves. Number two, learning outside the classroom is the only option we have available. And perhaps we've learned a lot of things that we need to take some time when we're not under the gun as we are at the current moment to say, look, it's been an adventure, but we've learned quite a bit, and we're going to find a way to formalize. So these are sort of the two tranches I've been thinking about. I don't have a recommendation, and it doesn't need to be necessarily answered, but these are two things I've been thinking about in the world of strategic planning.
Thank you, Mr. Avadia.
Mr. Avadia, I would say I agree. I think you bring up some good points about what we're looking at, and you're right. Bond to bond will be about 3 years for sure. With what we're looking at right now. In terms of experts, the architectural firm Garrison that we are working with, when we went through the interview process, and as we've begun our work with them, I would say that they're relative experts on getting bonds passed. It's been one of the strengths that their firm has demonstrated in terms of working with other school districts. There is always, bond referendums are for sure nuanced based on the community and what the needs and the reality of the community are. One of the great parts of Cherry Hill is that we are an incredibly large and diverse community. One of the challenges when it comes to referendum is we are a very large and diverse community, that goes through. So we will continue to work with people and bring people in, to talk. Some of you, and I would encourage you when it comes time for the board convention in the fall for workshop, there are always different groups that have done referenda, whether it's school boards and administrators and superintendents and architects, who talk about it. And they can all give really good tips and really good points. One of the hard parts is because it is so nuanced, to an individual community, it's making sure that you know your community and that the voices that are in support of a referendum are activated and involved, and people see the value in what's being done. But that for sure is going to be something that we will continue to talk about up until the referendum occurs and then after the referendum. Because again, there is work that has got to be done in the school district. Mrs. Tong asked a question about concrete. Mrs. Sugars always refers to, we could do a referendum literally just on hard surfaces, just on concrete and macadam, in our school district, and for tens of millions of dollars, to replace what we believe needs to be replaced. That just is a hard and fast reality. There were a group of us, we were checking on the roof, up here at Malberg today. The roof at Malberg's in bad shape. You'd be shocked with the work that's being done and what has to be done to be fixed. And so many of our schools are like that. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of because I can spend an hour listing all the work that needs to be done. But I think that is absolutely part of the discussion. In terms of reflection on what do those action steps look like and what do those 3 goals, where they are, I'm hopeful, Mr. Avadia, that the reflection takes place and is discussed during the course of the next 5 years. Nothing honestly would make me happier than at every board meeting, somebody asked a question about one of those 3 goals and what it means or what it looks like or what we are doing with it. Because the wording that went into the development of those goals and the identification of them to be that lighthouse for our district is that they do have the flexibility to continue to guide us. Those are the ideals that we want to get to. And again, nothing would make me happier than if we continue to discuss those regularly. That's literally talking about the work that's going on. And I think one of the most important things that as a 9-member group, the Board of Education can own and can drive and can continue.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Friedel?
I actually don't have a question about strategic planning, but if I can ask Dr. Malash a quick question about his first statement. Is that okay?
Sure. Okay. When
you were talking about the new procedure for all children to get lunches and breakfast, which is fantastic,
Yes.
Can you just clarify? The child doesn't have to be with the parent. The parent just needs the ID number?
You are correct, Mrs. Friedel. The child does
Okay.
not have to be with the parent. In fact, it doesn't necessarily even need to be the parent that's there. We have where it's other family members. There are, we've had, in some places where one person's picking up for 3 families that day. As long as they have the student ID numbers for the children for whom they are picking up, we will accept that to go through. It does not have to be the parent. It doesn't have to be the child. It doesn't even have to be somebody related. As long as they have the student ID numbers, because again, we realize, that one of the challenges, I think one of the great benefits of being able to feed any child that needs it is that we have a lot of families in our community that are, the parents are first responders or they're working in the medical field. We have kids that are home by themselves. We have kids that are being overseen by a neighbor, by somebody else who is there. So if that's what works, that's what works. The ideal is to get more food in the hands of children so that more children are eating.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying.
Good question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. And Mrs. Arroyo?
No, that makes me really happy that you just stated all of that. And definitely I appreciate all the work that's been happening. The community's been amazing with this. So thank you for making that comment, Dr. Walsh.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. So that brings us to our second public comment, and this is the public comment section on any item. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Sugars to see if she's already received any comments. If not, you still have a few moments to get your comment in. Again, you can email them to lshugars@chclc.org.
Great, so I have a couple of comments that have come in. I'm going to read them in the order that they came in. The first one is from Yanni Yaris. Last night's town council meeting approved more pilot agreements. Has there been any progress in working with the township to get the district a slice of pie within those agreements, especially given the current economic situation? Once again, I want to express my family's appreciation for everything the district team has done to support our students and families. The various videos and social media posts have been inspiring and a lot of fun to watch. The heart and spirit of Cherry Hill is being carried out by our incredible teachers, administrators, students, and Board of Ed. Okay, and the next one that I received, this is from Rick Short. Thank you, Mrs. Tong, for mentioning the serious sidewalk problems at Kingston and Carusi. I can't see how any cent spent on construction projects in the 2021 budget doesn't put the safety of our children, teachers, and staff first. Plus, let's not forget our ADA community, who is also at danger of injury. Thanks again, Ms. Tong. I hope it gets fixed for everyone's safety before September 2020. And then he also says, I would like to thank the Cherry Hill District and School Board for adding security cameras and swipe cards in tonight's budget vote. I have, this is a comment from Bob Herpin. Pursuant to the BOE meeting from this evening, I'd like your assistance in gaining some data to complete my upcoming article with the most accurate information. First of all, I would need to know the tax rate for the 2019-20 budget and whether or not the 2021 budget is expected to include an increase, decrease, or be static, and what percentages it is expected to be. Second, if you have a definitive figure on the average assessed home in Cherry Hill, please pass that along. That is it for public comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then that would mean that I'm going to call for a motion to.
Can we address?
Hold on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Can I ask, or is it my turn yet or not yet? Hello?
Sorry, Sally.
Yeah, can I ask us, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, I want to ask about the Miss Julius Wilson, that the bank was in them, all that survey that we did with the students, the parents, and the, I guess, the community. Did we ever receive the survey? Was it ever
The
sent out?
the committees did.
Yes.
The various committee members at the 2-day committee where we had representatives from the community, the staff, administration, and the board, they spent a significant amount of time going through the thousands of responses.
Okay. So do we as a board get like I guess what do you call the data sheet? What the response is, or what do we from the survey?
Well, we were not planning to share that out. However, we did have a lot of discussion about what was in those surveys, and all of that information from those surveys is what led to the 3 overarching goals that were presented and adopted. So we did share a lot of the feedback from those surveys. We categorized them and discussed them that way since there were so many comments.
Okay, so
Does
just
that-
the people in the community, the committees get that survey or the data from the survey. We, as the other board member, doesn't get a copy of it or any information on it.
Well, we can certainly have a discussion about it, but we did share, there were thousands of pieces of data. We had decided that the most effective way to sort of go through that data was by forming a committee that would help sort of put all of that data into perspective and make recommendations, which is how we moved forward with that. So if you feel like you're missing pieces of information, we could potentially, we could talk offline so I can make sure you have all the information. We did have a significant amount of discussion around that. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add there, but.
Yeah, it was, as the process was laid out, and we go back to the fall, we originally talked about it, because Mrs. Seidel says there are literally thousands and thousands of data points. The purpose of doing those was to collect the large scale information and get the big pictures of what was going on. The committee that met, those 27 people on January 14th and 15th, went through each of the different sections. And so as not to get lost in individual comments, it was to look at the overarching themes of the information that was there. So that's how it was used. There were board members that were represented, there were teachers, there were community members, there were students, it was shared out in that forum.
Okay. Well, I'd like to give more details on that, Mrs. Seidel and Dr. Malash, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Send an email and let me know what kind of details you're looking for, and we'll put stuff together for you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Malash. Thank you, Lisa.
Sure. Dr. Malash, are there any questions from the public that you're able to address?
Yes, so I can say that we don't have any updates. I did hear, the town council with the pilots, when we had discussion with the new mayor and with council president, they've reiterated that they are still interested in a discussion with us about being able to share whatever funding comes through. But I don't think that they're in the place where they've started to receive any of those funds coming in. But I certainly will follow up with the township leadership. Talked about the concrete quite a bit going through. And then questions about that specific data with the budget. Mrs. Sugars, that'll be in the user-friendly
It will,
budget.
yes, it will. We made some slight changes tonight, as you know, there's some projects around, so we have to go back to the county office. So we will start that process tomorrow.
Okay.
And then get the user-friendly budget up as soon as we can.
Okay. Very good. And then again, before you adjourn, again, I just want to thank all of our teachers and staff members who've been interacting with students and families. Thank you to the families and thank you to the students. Continue to do the best that you can. That's what we ask of you. Please don't sit in front of a computer for 9 hours at a time or for multiple hours at a time. Please make sure you take a break, get outside when you can. It's great to walk outside in the sunshine. It's also okay to walk outside in the rain. Do not sit just doing schoolwork in front of a computer. That's not healthy. Read a book, find an activity, spend time with your family members, maybe leave compassionately spaced, because I know we've all been together a lot right now. But again, thank you to everyone. It's always positive. You don't know the difference that it makes when our teachers and our assistants and the principals, when they hear from our students and from parents, thanking them for what they've done. So thank you to all of you, and continue to spread that gratitude. The more that we can continue to support one another as a community, the more beneficial that it will be for our children, and the faster that we can move forward together.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Neary, can I have a second, please?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Stay safe. Have a great night.
Have a
Good night,
good
everybody.
evening.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.